So welcome to the studio. Today is Monday, the first day this week, and no, actually, I was yesterday here, Sunday. So yeah, dealing with a lot of business stuff because everyone else is now reachable again. I got a contract I need to sign, first check with the lawyer. It's all about changing our distributor to the same one as Armada. That's a big step for my label. So since I don't really have a whole lot of time, I thought about making like a special video for all beginners, or also for like people that still want to learn something, musicians and producers alike. And we'll cover everything about frequencies, everything you need to know to fully understand the music production workflow and to know how to stack your elements and where problems might occur and how to solve them. So let's get started. So first, let's start with the boring stuff, the theory. I think everyone knows that the human range of hearing goes from 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz, roughly. The very, very low bass is more feeling than actually hearing. And the top, the older you get, the less you will actually hear of the top. That's also why MP3 usually cuts away the top end, because it's not really needed. Those frequencies are anyways not that nice, really harsh. And again, just younger people can hear it. By the way, fun fact, there was once in Germany a supermarket that wanted to get rid of like young adults, youth that were like hanging out in front of it, smoking and drinking. So they installed machines that produce very high frequencies. No one like 25 above could hear them, but for them it was really annoying, and this way they tried to get rid of them. But this wasn't actually allowed by law, so they had to stop it. Anyways, I made like a little graph. It goes from 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz, and it will show you where in the frequency range which kind of instrument is actually placed. This chart is mainly for electronic music, but if you make like pop music with more real instruments, you could replace the synthesizers with trumpets or any other kind of instrument that actually takes over the frequency range of vocals. So usually in a song, the very low frequencies are kick and bass, mostly the sub bass. Above that is the top bass. Then we have chords, low piano chords, low pad chords. Above that we have like the beginning of the mid-range. This could be like higher chords, the mid section of the chords, a guitar. The vocals also start there and go past that to the full mid frequencies and even to the top frequencies. The middle is usually where it gets really dense, because most elements have something in the middle part of the frequencies. So that's where you have to be really careful. If your song has vocals in it, carve everything out. The vocal is the main star, make room for it. Playing too many instruments at the same time will definitely destroy your song. The top end is usually easier to handle. Just don't make it too full with too many hi-hats, playing too many rhythms at the same time. This just always feels really awkward. And this way, build up your song basically like a cake. Cake and base your foundation. Make sure they don't interfere, but still sound glued together. Sidechaining helps, low cutting helps, EQing helps, shortening the kick, shortening the bass also helps. Then the chords, like the melodic foundation of the song. On top of that, guitar, voice, trumpet, whatever is kind of the main element. It could be also a main synthesizer sound. And the top part, again, hi-hats, maybe high strings, high pads, to fill out the mix. If you got more than that in your mix, it will be hard to mix, maybe even impossible. If you have like 4 different kinds of pads and you don't glue them together that they sound like one, it will be hard to actually have room for other things, especially vocals. Again, guitar, it will sound muddy. So yeah, you could solve it by arranging the song differently, not making these play together, have like call response kind of type. If you listen to any pop or electronic song, you will hear that they never actually play the stuff together, and that's why it sounds so good. So that's basically covering the frequency arrangement, how to actually get everything in place. By the way, if you're interested in that chart, it will be downloadable, first link in the description. You just have to sign up and will then get access to the chart, also to another chart we'll talk about in a bit, as well as all of my samples and also construction kit, logic templates. all for free. The next part you have to understand is like the placement and the mix of those frequencies. For that, we need another graph. It's like X, Y, Z axis. On the X axis, we have left and right. So you can have a sound to the very far on both sides. Make it wide by delaying one side. You can use Brainworks to do this. There's also the S1 imager by Waves. Or again, just delaying one of those channels by a couple of milliseconds. Or if you record vocals or guitar, just do double takes, pan one left, one right, and you got this really wide sound. I personally always put the guitar really wide, sometimes the clap and snare. This really depends. For a club song, I would keep the snare in mono actually, or closer to mono. For a pop song, just everything to the side and the mid frequencies to have more room for the vocals. The main vocal sits in the middle of the entire mix. The left, right, double harmonies sit more to the side. The very low is again kick, bass, the placement of those. Top, again, hi-hats, we already talked about that. Placing the top end usually also more to the sides. Kick and bass, of course, always mono, especially the very, very low frequencies below like 100 Hertz. Keep it mono, it just sounds better, cleaner. If you have an instrumental track without the vocal would be replaced by a main synthesizer sound. This can be mono to sit in the middle if you have other synthesizers to the side or pads. But if your song's like big room, just kick, main sound, make that sound cover all of those frequencies, the middle as well. And yeah, you're basically done with your big room sound. So I think it should be pretty clear, like up, down frequencies, left, right, how it's spread out. Then there's one more, and that's actually depth. And that's achieved by using reverb. It's the hardest to master because it's not that obvious. It's like a very fine detailed thing. But if you leave, for example, the main vocal that sits in the middle dry, it will be right in your face. If you put a little bit of reverb, you can push it back in the mix. And this way you have like all three dimensions within a mix covered. I personally put on every single element at least a tiny bit of reverb to make it sound natural and like what we're used to. Human ears are used to hearing stuff with reverb all the time. So even for a hi-hat, a small reverb, even if you can't hear it really, if it's not an obvious reverb, you will still hear it if you bypass the reverb. It will just jump out of the mix again. So if you have elements that stick out too much, reverb, push them back. There's one more thing I would love to cover, and that is actually like the most helpful plugin, at least for me, whenever it comes to frequencies. You probably already know it because I'm using it all the time. That plugin is of course Span, my favorite analyzer. It's for free. I will also link it down below. Again, all of those charts, all of my samples, first link, second link to Span. It's also for free. Let's really quick check the settings because a lot of people ask me about the settings. It's a basic analyzer, I think one of the best on the market. For the settings, let's check actually. I mean, the UI scale doesn't really matter. Everything in here is basically as it comes, but on edit, I usually change the block size to 8000. This means the analyzer will be more detailed. It also drains your CPU a lot more. And I also make sure to check this full display. I don't know, it's just optics. That's basically what it looks like. You can see all of the frequencies. You can see the correlation meter telling you how wide your mix actually is, or if it's an anti-phase. It also shows you RMS, which is like the average loudness. I usually go for -10 on my master. It shows you clipping and all these kind of things. But what's really interesting, for example, if you have a percussion in your song. Let's see if I have a percussion in this song. Not really, so let's actually use the kick. So you can go into the graph and you see the peak of the kick is right at 50 Hertz, which is really good for electronic music. And it also shows you the note. So it's G1. Like all of these frequencies correspond to notes. Yeah, I know, mind blowing, but it's pretty simple. Like if you look at a keyboard, the very, very low notes have the lowest in the frequency range. So 20 Hertz is E0, and then C1 is 30 Hertz. And then, for example, 2.6 K K, hertz is E7. So every instrument, every frequency corresponds a note and a frequency. For example, if you have a pad and you look at the analyzer and the pad is way too low in frequencies, it's covering like 50, 60, 70 hertz, we're actually kicking bass in either room, then just put the piano 1 octave up. You're just too low. A lot of beginners do that. They want to create the most bass heavy, lowest kind of song and put their bass 1 octave too low so that it actually sits underneath of the kick, which makes mixing almost impossible. One last tip, if you want to listen to frequencies isolated, just hold down Command and swipe through the frequencies. This is so extremely helpful to find resonating frequencies, to find frequencies that are not that pleasing. For example, in a guitar, you swipe through and then maybe add, I don't know, 8.5 kilohertz. It's not that nice, so you go into the EQ, lower it a little bit, A and B, compare it, and this way improve all of your 50 tracks that are within your song. And if you improve every single one by using your knowledge about frequencies, using the span analyzer, using the graphs, you will definitely squeeze out 10 to 20% out of your production. So I hope this helps. Thanks all for watching. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments. Tomorrow, another episode back here in the studio. A full vlog again, because yeah, today again, only business stuff, which I hate. I wish I could make music today, but tomorrow we'll get back to that. Still, of course, working on the album.